story with Jade. It was with the SABC's Chief Operations Officer in Plaatjies. Now, remember, we spoke to the union CWU with regards to the state of play at the SABC regarding the retrenchments. Mr. Plaatjies is back on the line via telephone. Sir, thank you very much indeed for your time. Apologies for the interruption earlier.
No problem, Blaine.
Where are we with regards to the Section 189 process?
Okay, so as I was saying, Blaine, we ended the CCMA facilitated session, which lasted 4 months last year, November. The board then gave an extension of 7 days for us to do some additional consultation. Bamal asked for that 7 days to be extended by 30 days, which we did. The terms of reference for the 30 days was approved by all parties, and that 30 days came to an end on the 31st of December. So we are busy implementing on the 189 process now.
I was reading a statement by CWU, and in the statement, they talk about that the erosion of the SABC in-house capacity to build content, replacing permanent jobs with casual workers. They talk about freelancers, as well as they talk about outsourcing of key functions of the entity. They're saying this will plunge the entity into deeper financial woes. Are they correct in their assessment of the route the SABC is taking?
Absolutely not. So one must remember that right now the SABC doesn't produce its own content. So that has been the model for the SABC for many, many years already. So it's external production companies that produces on behalf of the SABC. That model's always been there. In terms of what we are looking at outsourcing, the outsourcing of television license collections, as you know, with any other account collections, is to have as wide as possible network. And that has been, that ecosystem has been put in place already, where you can pay television license at numerous retail stores as well. So it's the last bit of that we will be outsourcing on a 197. It is very important to remember, it's in an attempt.
Sorry, Mr. Plaatjies, please could you just repeat your last sentence? You just lost you there a bit.
Okay. So it's important to remember that the 97 people that would be impacted by the 197 process of TV license collections, so the outsourcing, it's an attempt to save jobs. In other words, instead of retrenching those people, we will actually be doing an outsourcing exercise, and they'd be able to retain their current job in a new organization.
So we went from a position of 900 staff that jobs were on the line. It was reduced to 600. And then now we're told just over 300. What prevents you from further reducing that number?
And the unions are on record stating this as well, that the organization is bloated. So there's a lot of duplication and redundancies within the organization. There's nothing you can do about those positions because they are not needed within the organization. And certainly going into the new operating model. So it is jointly with the unions and other stakeholders and all staff that we came to this number by meaningfully engaging with one another and reducing that number from 600 to just over 300.
There are some talented people that receive letters with regards to being surplus. How do you justify that? What sort of criteria was used in order to issue out these letters?
Yeah. So when you do a 189 process, it has to be on a no-fault basis. In other words, we are not taking people's talent into account, nor are we taking their performance into account. It has to be a fair process in terms of what is the optimal structure going forward and taking the organization forward. And any position that's not required there, that individual will become impacted because the position is no longer required. We are hoping that talent will be applying for the vacancies within the organization and be absorbed in other roles within the organization.
I would just want to go back to what CWU says. I'm sticking with them because I haven't had a chance to speak to Bamal, but they say that in their last meeting held on the 29th of December last year, the SABC management failed to provide organized labor with the names of, they give a number, 290 workers that are affected in terms of the SABC plan. They go on to say that on the 8th of January this year, the SABC made an announcement that it will retrench 303 workers, contrary to their commitment, your commitment at the Section 189 meeting, where you indicated that it'll only be 290 workers affected. What's your response to that?
No, not. They're taking the thing out of context. Okay. So if you look at the consultation process, and it wasn't a case of moving from 600 to 303, and that's the final number. It was a process that we went through. You will recall that after the CCMA facilitated sessions, that number was reduced from 600 to 400. And during the process that we had in the last 30 days, some positions were added and some were taken out. So that number was fluctuating continuously. The process ended the 31st. He's referencing where the number was at the 29th. So within that 2 days, there were other movements up and down, and the end result was 303.
So as of today, have all retraction, redundancy, and surplus letters, have they been issued?
Yes, I have.
How many retraction letters were issued?
I don't have the number offhand, but I can certainly get that number for you.
Just give us a sense of the criteria again that was used in issuing or retracting letters.
Okay, so remember there isn't a criteria used for issuing or retracting letters. The criteria is used for placing people. What was used was a new target operating model for the organization and a new proposed structure taking the organization into the future. That was the basis for determining whether the role is required in the new structure or not.
Talk to us about the positions. Have all vacant positions for all divisions been advertised as yet?
So they have not. We are starting that process literally from tomorrow, basically, that those positions will be advertised. And during this month, people will be in the position to apply for those positions.
So take us in terms, give us the tick-tock, the process to be followed. By when do you think people will be appointed to those positions?
Okay, so as soon as the process is concluded, because you will appreciate that people will be applying for more than one position that is obviously advertised. So that will take some time in terms of working through the process. And then by the end of this month, we would know which of the people that would be placed or not. And then from next month onwards, they would then serve a notice period if they haven't been successfully placed.
So we are in the middle of January. You're saying by the end of the month you would know who will be placed. Some people just received their letters yesterday. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Is that fair in terms of giving people enough time to consider their options? Because it's life-changing for people.
Yeah. Blaine, I think it's important to remember that this was announced 6 months ago already. The current people that have been identified received letters last year already. So people knew more or less whether they're going to be impacted or not in terms of making a decision.
But what happens to the people that received their letters on Monday and Tuesday, sir?
Yeah. So if you just received your letter, and obviously there are people that would have not been impacted at all, but would have considered taking a VSP or early retirement. So that was always on the table. So they will receive 3 days to make that decision. Remember, the decision is not to exit. The decision is whether they want to apply for vacant positions within the organization or whether they're going to be accepting a VSP.
3 days. Do you think that's enough? Is there any room here to increase that period? Because as I said, I go back to, that doesn't only affect them, it affects their families as well. They need to think about this. 3 days?
Yes. Yeah. So if you opt to say to contest other positions, you're not going to be exiting immediately. The only thing you need to exercise is if you do not want to contest that. But you would have decided that before already in terms of whether you want to take a VSP or not.
VSP, voluntary severance package applications, is this still open?
It's still still open, and it's open for all employees, not only those that are impacted by the structural changes.
The reality we're facing now, sir, is a possible strike is on the cards. Is there a middle ground here? Can consensus be reached? Can the strike be avoided?
So, Blaine, we can't preempt the strike. The unions have a right to strike. That is their right. It would be on a no work, no pay basis. And it's critical to understand that we only able to reduce the 600 to 300 by introducing the alternatives. The alternatives have not yet been agreed to. That is salary freezes for the next 3 years or until the organization is turned around and we break even, a reduction in leave days and a reduction in sick leave days. If that is not agreed to, then we are not going to be just looking at 300. The other 300 positions that we are able to save because of the alternatives comes back onto the table again.
So we've run out of time, but we do appreciate your time as well. Be well.
Thanks, Blaine.
Ian Plaatjies, SABC Chief Operations Officer there. All right, you heard what they had to say. We heard from CWU, you heard from SABC. We'll try to get Bamau as well during the course of the day, get their take on this. No doubt a lot of hurt, a lot of pain among SABC staff members who receive these letters. Uncertainty to a certain extent, but we'll no doubt follow up on all sides of this story to get you a full picture of what's happening. Folks, thank you very much indeed for spending your morning with us. The news continues. I want to hand it over to the On Point team. Have yourself a great day. I'll chat to you tomorrow.